Nvidia is bringing back the 3060 in 2026, and here's how that'll help Steam hardware. After that, let's talk about how Asus is kind of hurting itself and helping the Steam Deck as well. And finally, we're not even a week into 2026 and Steam is already breaking records. How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is Deck Ready, my channel all about Steam hardware. I hope you're having a great week playing a ton of video games. On my Steam Deck right now, I'm playing through Baldur's Gate 3. I absolutely love it. And then on the multiplayer side on Steam Deck, I am hooked on Dead by Daylight with my friends. It's so much fun. I'll talk about it more at the end of the video. Before we jump into the news, thanks for getting me over 97,000 subscribers. We have 3,000 more to go before I can do less of these sub shoutouts, get me to 100K so I can stop being annoying. But with the intro out of the way, let's get into the first news story here and talk about how the 3060 is coming back. So CES, it's in full swing right now. We know Lenovo is going to announce the Legion Go 2 with SteamOS. I'm really curious to see the price difference between that and the Windows edition. I think it's still going to be crazy, but maybe we'll get a couple $100 off for removing the Windows licensing fee. Nvidia had some crazy announcements as well, like DLSS 4.5 goes all the way back to the 30 series of cards. So it's funny, like when they're actually selling the newer cards, they keep DLSS proprietary, but you know, when they stop being able to sell the newer cards, they're like, well, we can backport DLSS and it'll work just fine. They also announced 6 times frame generation, and like, what are we doing, man? Like 6 times AI frame generation, it's just predicting what you're gonna do 6 frames ahead and trying to just put it on the screen. You're not even playing the game at that point. Like next year, I bet they're going to announce input generation and they're going to sell it like, we know it's so tough having a long workday, so you can just basically turn your game into a movie or something like that. I don't know, but that's just crazy if you ask me. But the biggest weird thing coming out of CES so far is that it's being reported that the 3060 is going back into production. We are currently on the 50 series generation of cards. So they're going back 2 full generations and bringing out the mid-range card from back then to hopefully give people a way to build a cheap gaming PC in 2026. It's a weird announcement for sure, but the timing is really good because it kind of helps the Steam Deck, the Steam Machine, the Steam Frame, and even the PS5 and Nintendo Switch too. Like if you're someone who's played games for a long time, I think I'm not really going out of bounds if I say that gaming kind of plateaued, it seems like, back in the PS4 generation, like around the middle or end of it. And ever since then, we've seen game sizes balloon, right? Like the gigabytes of storage that it takes up on your SSD has gotten bigger. Gameplay has stayed about the same, graphics has stayed about the same, and performance has gone down the gutter. And it's because they're basically looking at the best cards on the market, assuming that's what everyone's buying on PC and starting there, right? Like they're starting with 5090 performance and then tacking away at the game to make sure it'll run decently at best on older cards like the 4060 Ti, which is equivalent to a PS5, or, you know, a Steam Deck, a Steam Machine, a Nintendo Switch 2, or the PS5 itself. But if all the high-end cards are being bought up by data centers and people are going for what they can actually afford, which is something like a 3060, a 4060, a Steam Machine, a PS5, or a Steam Deck, if developers want to make money on their games, they're gonna have to start targeting those cards. And that even works its way over to Epic Games, right? Like, yeah, it's cool that, you know, you can make photorealistic environments with Unreal Engine 5 that then end up in shows like Stranger Things when they use the big volume screen. But when it comes to gaming, targeting photorealistic graphics just isn't a smart move when the vast majority of your user base is playing on hardware that can't take advantage of it. So that's why I think last year we saw a lot of games start to move towards good performance, like Arc Raiders. It used Unreal Engine 5, but it stripped out the hardware features like ray tracing and Lumen and Nanite and all that other stuff that basically demands you have a more expensive graphics card than what's in even the PS5 or PS5 Pro, and they won for it, right? Like they sold their game at $40. It runs well on everything, including the Steam Deck, and they reap the rewards because that's one of the best selling and most played games of 2025 by far. And then you look at the other side of the fence with a popular multiplayer game like Helldivers 2 that let their performance get out of control. It's gotten worse and worse ever since the game came out. They let the file size get out of control. They stopped listening to their players, and they had to do a basically Operation Health style thing, like where they reduced the file size needed for that game by a lot, but they still have a huge uphill battle. And I don't think people are going to switch from Arc Raiders back to Helldivers 2 just because they implement features that should have been there from the beginning. So with more and more people gaming on mid-range hardware, keeping around older parts, and with the 3060 coming back, I think developers, whether they like it or not, are gonna have to start targeting that hardware as the baseline, right? Like we've heard from Epic Games that, the biggest reason Unreal Engine games have performance problems is because developers start at 5090 level and then work their way down. That's gonna have to end because no one's gonna move on to newer hardware if they have to basically pay the cost of a used car to actually get decent performance out of these games that are using higher end features like ray tracing, path tracing, lumen, nanite, the big file sizes, the insane texture sizes. Like they're not only going to have to start targeting the level of performance that a 3060 or 4060 can output, but they're also going to have to make sure that 8 gigabytes of VRAM is enough once again. So maybe Valve was clairvoyant and saw where things were going and they were like, yeah, 8 gigabytes wasn't enough in 2025, but with the way things are going in terms of what people are buying, we think developers are going to have to wake up and realize that they have to start making sure that 8 gigabytes is usable once again. And another thing that's kind of influencing that is the whole memory shortage situation, right? Like they're going to have to start targeting 16 gigabytes of RAM and not just assume that everyone can go out and buy 32 gigs of RAM. They're also going to have to start targeting the fact that people can't afford to buy a bigger SSD when they fill up their smaller one at 1 or 2 terabytes. They can't just go buy another 2 terabyte SSD or a 4 terabyte one and pop it into their PC. They're going to have to say, well, it's worth investing time, money, and energy into shrinking the file size of our game to make sure that it'll fit on a lower end SSD. Lower end, I mean smaller SSD, like 1 terabyte or less. So when you read these news stories about the memory shortage situation, the pricing situation, keep in mind that like negativity sells, right? Like I try my best to always look at the positive side of things, but I don't think anyone's really ever tried to think of any positive benefits of these shortages and, older parts coming back or anything like that. So I think we are in a weird spot, not necessarily a good spot, not necessarily a bad spot, but if everything works out in a good way, we could start seeing performance in games actually improve over time. And I think that's a good thing at the end of the day. I just hope Valve can get the Steam Machine out there at a fair price. I hope the same for the Steam Frame, and I hope the Steam Deck OLED sticks around for a lot longer. And if game performance continues to get better and require less space and require older parts to be able to run, that only benefits the Steam Deck because it's basically the perfect hardware to target since it's very similar to the architecture of a PlayStation 5, obviously just downclocked to run at lower resolutions and run at lower clocks so that you get better battery life, right? Like it's a handheld, but this could be good is what I'm saying. But like with everything, the only thing we can do is just sit back and wait and monitor the situation. Like anything in life, expect the worst, hope for the best, and everything will probably work out somewhere in the middle. That's generally how it goes, right? Like if you're a doomer or a black pillar, you'll see things continuing to get worse and worse. If you're way too positive, you can get into the toxic positivity zone. But if you just kick back and just take the punches as they come, you generally end up pretty much in the middle of the road. And I feel like that's where everyone should be at the end of the day, just emotionally speaking, right? You don't want to be manic. You don't want to be depressive. You just want to be even keel, like Joe Cool, that Snoopy character. That's how you want to be. And that's how I'm trying to be with this whole situation, with the pricing, the shortages, and 3060s coming back. It's crazy. But DLSS 4.5 is going to work on older cards. That's good. I think that's largely a very good thing that is resulting from all of this. So take the wins when you can get them. You know what I'm saying? But speaking of price increases, let's get into the second news story here and talk about the Asus situation. So right before the end of the year, or actually it might have been right at the beginning of the year, Asus put out this letter that was basically like, look, the situation is dire. We are going to raise prices on some of our products in 2026. And people are assuming that basically applies to the ROG Xbox Ally and the ROG Xbox Ally X, and that makes sense because they basically have pretty much the same parts as the Legion Go 2, and the price difference between those things is in the range of hundreds of dollars. So I'd assume that, within the next few months or so, we're going to see the Xbox ROG Ally price increase to the level of where the Legion Go 2 is at. One thing they could do to keep the price down is start partnering with Valve instead of Microsoft and actually put SteamOS on it like a lot of people actually do the second they take it out of the box. But, I'm fine with Asus siding with Xbox, and I'm fine with Lenovo siding with Steam. It's cool to have competition in this space, you know what I'm saying? But obviously this helps the Steam Deck because Valve clearly has a big batch of Steam Deck OLEDs just sitting around in a warehouse, and they can keep the price largely the same. If they get to a situation where, they're going to have to start producing more Steam Deck OLEDs, then it might be a bad situation because they'll probably have to increase the price or take it out of stock until they can figure out a deal with the hardware manufacturers to get it made at a price that allows them to keep selling it at the same price to us. But for now, I mean, if you're looking at the pricing situation, the Steam Deck OLED starts at like $550, and then the next jump up for the ROG Xbox Ally or Legion Go S with SteamOS is like around $700 on average, and then you jump up from there to over $1,000. I think the best value in gaming, pretty much if you're looking at a PC handheld, is and always will be the Steam Deck OLED, because Valve sees this stuff coming, I guess. They're like, well, it's going to look a little weird for a couple of years that we're using mid-range hardware in all of our stuff, but we promise at some point you're going to see all these other competitors have to increase their price because they're rushing out new editions all the time. They're going for the biggest, baddest hardware chips they can find to get the best performance possible. They are going to reap what they sow eventually, and so are we, but it's going to be super negative for them and super positive for us. So if you have a Steam Deck, it looks like you're pretty much in the best spot possible. And if you don't have a Steam Deck, I said this in the last video, but now is the time to buy. Like for right now, it seems like the pricing is going to stay the same on the Steam Deck, but you can't rely on anything in this crazy world of PC component prices that we've entered in 2026. But moving into the third news story, it looks like this pricing situation hasn't affected people switching to PC gaming or getting into gaming with PC for the first time, because starting off 2026, Valve broke its record of concurrent players and got to 41.8 million players on Steam all at the same time, which is insane. The last time it broke this record was in October, and then if you look back on 2025, it was breaking its record concurrently basically every single month. So PC gaming is continually on the rise, and that's good. As for why this happened, I think the Steam sale is obviously a big reason. This was one of the better Steam sales in a while. We started seeing some AAA games falling in prices, like Silent Hill F. That game came out in October or September, and it was already down to $41 from $70. And that's just one example. There were plenty of great games at $10 or less. There were plenty of games at $30 or less. Like if you had a wish list full of games that you were waiting to get on a sale that came out in 2025 or 2024, you were eating good in this Steam sale. So I feel like it was a big surge of returning players who bought new PC games and started playing them over their time off over Christmas. And then obviously I feel like a lot of people either got Steam Decks, Legion Go S's, ROG Xbox Allies, any device that can run Steam over Christmas, and logged on for the first time, saw this amazing sale, started buying some games, and thankfully started playing them, because you don't want to be that kind of person who buys like 50 or 60 games during a Steam sale and doesn't play any of them. And shockingly, there are a lot of people out there that do that. I think this record's going to be beat pretty quickly, especially when the Steam Machine comes out and you can plug it into your TV, you can turn it on with a controller, you can take advantage of your entire Steam library, and hopefully you have Half-Life 3 to play on the thing, because I think that launch is going to be massive. But even on the Windows side of the fence, things are looking good. I mean, for them, unfortunately, people are abandoning Windows 10 at a record rate since they stopped supporting it and they're moving on to Windows 11. Arc Raiders did amazing. That runs on both Linux and Windows and is obviously benefiting for it. Battlefield 6, even though it lost a lot of its players, it's still doing strong. Call of Duty's not doing great on PC right now, and I'm fine with that because it's been kind of just running through the motions over the past few years, but like Expedition 33 was huge. Hollow Knight Silksong won the Steam Awards, which is not a big surprise because that game is made for people playing on PC and it runs great on the Steam Deck. There were a couple new entries in the top 100 most played games on deck. So while all the other manufacturers are kind of looking at the situation like, I don't know how we're going to do going into the future, it's very obvious that as a platform, Steam is doing better than ever. And I don't think it's stopping anytime soon. Like, this is a good sign for PC gaming as a whole, because it seems like, unlike every other company under the sun, when Valve gets more players, they just double down and reinvest into good Steam features that will just benefit them, while everyone else is like, how can we raise the price of PS Plus? How can we remove games, like getting rid of PS4 games under PS Plus? And like every other not consumer friendly move that's been made by every other company over the past couple of years, it seems like it's been countered every single time by Valve doing consumer friendly stuff, and I just hope that continues. But yeah, I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I'm playing Baldur's Gate 3. I realized realized that the reason I fell off of this game so hard is because it's just like Kingdom Come Deliverance. Kingdom Come Deliverance's first chapter is like 4 or 5 hours long and not indicative of the game you're actually playing. The same thing goes for Baldur's Gate 3 to some extent. I understand why it's kind of handholdy at the beginning because it's a big CRPG. It's got a lot of mechanics to show you, but it starts with a really good intro where you're on a Mind Flayer's ship. There's an amazing cutscene. You're looking out of the ship. There's a dragon hanging off the side of it. There's dragons flying and shooting fire. And then it just drops you on a beach. And then the story gets sidelined for the first few hours, right? Like you get the characters that are in your party. You go to camp a couple of times. You explore the crashed ship. Then there's like a goblins versus these horned creatures camp situation that you have to resolve. And I'm like, what are we doing here? The key to Baldur's Gate 3, if you're someone like me who's fallen off of it a couple of times, just stick through the intro and get through it as fast as you can, because once you get into the actual game, you'll understand why people love it. And that's the same thing that happened to me with the original Kingdom Come Deliverance. Dead by Daylight, on the other hand, is the opposite. What you see is what you get. It's been that way for 10 years, except the difference is now there's like 4,000 survivors and 5,000 killers. My friends and I were having so much fun over the weekend. We figured out that if you prestige a survivor, it unlocks their custom perks for everyone. So we spent time leveling up different characters. I played as Steve Harrington, got him to level 50 and prestiged him. Then I switched to Bill from Left 4 Dead. He is one of the best perks in the game. I prestiged him, and now I'm playing as Leon, trying to finish out the last 10 levels. The most fun killer, if you're playing with friends to play against, is Chucky. He is so hilarious. He's Chucky sized. He's not like scaled up like he is in Call of Duty. So you see this little fucker running Mach 5 around the map, and sometimes they use perks that get rid of the heartbeat. Like when a killer gets close to you, you hear a heartbeat increase, and the louder it is, the closer the killer is. Sometimes Chucky players will turn that off. So you'll be doing the generator and you'll see like a little gap in a door, and you'll just see Chucky run by at Mach 5 and laugh. And you're like, whoa, that was actually scary. And when he's chasing you, it's one of the scariest moments I've had in a game in a long time. So we were begging people in the text chat all night to play as Chucky on Friday night, and then no one was. And we were like, crap. And then finally on our last game of the night, someone's like, the killer can't see the text chat in the lobby. So that's why no one was playing as Chucky. We load into the match, and then it says, the killer is playing as the good guy. My buddies and I, best moment of the entire Christmas break, man. We were so excited, and then we steamrolled that little fucker. It was awesome. I primarily play on Steam Deck. It runs amazing. You can set it to Ultra and play at 45 FPS. It does not inhibit you in any way during the skill checks. I think it runs great, and it looks really good on the OLED screen. Blown up on my monitor on my Windows PC, it looks like a PS3 game, but it looks like it was made for the Steam Deck, if that makes sense. So I don't know if you'd like Dead by Daylight. Apparently people hate it right now, but I've been having a ton of fun playing it. I think I put like 30 hours in the past couple of weeks, and it's just been a great chat room hangout for my friends and I. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for you in today's video. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.